All right, welcome everybody to our energy flow. So I'll invite you to come and make your way into a child's pose or whatever shape works for you to just kind of get grounded and get centered. We'll connect with our breath there and get going from that place. So child's pose, you would have your knees wide and your toes touching. And I'm gonna do that as soon as I take my socks off. Oh, and there is also something to offer you guys, which is a playlist if you want to have a little bit of music while you practice. Let me pop that into the chat. If you want it, it is there. Okay. So taking your time to get cozy, comfortable, whatever that looks like for you and your body today. And a big part of the beginning of our practice is really just checking in and kind of noticing what we're feeling in our bodies and what we might need. So let's just take a few moments in the quiet and we'll just connect with the breath. So it doesn't have to be any particular breath. You might want to sigh just to kind of tune in and take a moment to just really feel what's happening for you right now. Noticing the earth below you, connection with that earth. How you're breathing with your connection to the earth and also the land where you are. And some of you might be noticing, if you're practicing live, that we just had a full moon. It's still pretty full, so we're just on the other side of that moment of fullness. And that can be lots of different kinds of things. It can be sleep disturbances, it can be sudden new energy, anxiety. Sometimes it's the opposite of that. It's a feeling of kind of like having lost a lot of energy. And I find around the full moon is a really nice time actually for hip openers, which were part of the request, but also a time to really think about kind of coming to that moment of fullness. What are we letting go of, and sort of breathing that through. So it's a nice time for me to flow gently. And if you are feeling some of that kind of lethargy or tiredness, just lean into that and go as slow as you need to go, okay? So if you haven't yet, let's take a nice deep full moon breath, connecting to our Ujjayi pranayama. So we've got that lifting and widening of the ribs, the diaphragm on the inhale. And connecting very gently to the core on the exhale. Listening for that little whispering sound at the back of the throat. And you might need to stay as you are a bit longer. Some of you are kind of ready to start moving. So we'll make our way toward downward dog. We've got some time. So I'm going to come through cat and cow myself, but you could also come right into downward dog. You could take any other shapes that work for you. If you're taking cat and cow with me, we're just inhaling into a little back bend shape and exhaling to round. I'm on hands and knees, but you could also do that in a seat. Nice idea to close the eyes. Just so that you can really feel in. And if you're coming with me into downward dog, you can walk your hands a little bit farther forward. They're nice and wide, so I like about match distance apart, tucking the toes and lifting up the bum. You can pedal your heels out here, bending one knee at a time. It's a soft bend in the elbows, kind of hugging them together. And eventually walking to your hands, coming into a standing forward bend, hanging down over the legs or resting your elbows on your bent knees. If your lower back is feeling a bit sensitive today, that might be a good spot. Okay, otherwise you can kind of hang down, you can sway, you can shake your head. And then we'll roll up. So if your lower back is feeling sensitive, you can bend your knees a lot, look forward and come up with a nice neutral spine. Otherwise, we can roll up. So bending the knees, leaning back into the heels, gather in the belly, and just try to let your head and shoulders be nice and heavy as you rise. Taking your time and just seeing how your bones want to organize themselves in relationship to the ground, to the earth. So you might want to lift your toes up and spread them apart, and then press them back down and just see what it feels like to kind of balance on the earth. And let's flow. So next time you inhale, reach your arms up to the sky. Exhale, dive forward over your legs. Lengthen up halfway, draw the heart forward, and then step your right foot behind you and lower your knee down or not. Heart and hands rise into a nice low lunge. And then downward facing dog. Connect your palms, step back. Come forward into a plank pose. Feel free to use your knees and lower all the way down for this first one. Pointing the toes, lift the heart, coming into a little cobra, and then downward facing dog from there. Right leg is going to rise to the sky on your inhale. There's no rush. And then we'll just do our best to step that foot through. It can help to lean a little bit to the left. Bring that foot down, knee can come down, doesn't have to. Lifting the heart, low lunge. And then forward fold to the top of the mat. Halfway lift, drawing forward. Exhale, melt. And the knees rise all the way up. Maybe lean back a little bit at the top if you want to. And then dive again. Exhale. Halfway lift, nice long spine. Left foot steps back to higher low lunge. Inhale, rising up. Downward facing dog. Come forward into your plank, on or off the knees. You can lower all the way down or maybe halfway through chaturanga, and then you can pull through into cobra or upward facing dog, which is here with the kneecaps lifted. And then back to downward dog from there. Left leg will rise on your inhale. Step the foot through as you exhale. So I'm just leaning right a little bit. And then rising up. Beautiful. Forward fold as you exhale. Halfway lift, fill the lungs. Exhale, melt. And then the knees rise all the way up. And then bring the hands together at the heart as you exhale. Right away, we'll begin again, reaching the arms up, inhale. And dive. Lengthen. Right foot back. Inhale, lengthen. Coming into your low lunge or high lunge. Exhale, downward facing dog. So here's your vinyasa. Inhale to plank. Exhale, lower halfway or all the way down. Try to keep the shoulders back, elbows in, and then pull through to your back bend. Downward dog from there. Right leg will rise. Step it through. Low lunge or high lunge is great too. Forward fold as you exhale. Lengthen. And melt. Bend your knees, rise all the way up. Maybe there's a little back bend at the top. And then dive. Halfway lift, fill the lungs. Left foot back. Find your lunge, take your time. Try to complete your inhale. And you've got that whole long exhale to make your way back to downward dog. And flow through your vinyasa, which could be cat and cow. It doesn't have to be this particular sequence. Coming to plank, lower down, finding your back bend, And then downward dog. Good, left leg rises. And step through. Awesome, lift the heart. Beautiful, forward fold. No rush, okay? Follow your own rhythm. Halfway lift. And melt. Rise all the way up. And then bring your hands to touch at your heart. And take a moment just to feel that, to receive the work of that sun salutation, the flow of energy. Good, okay. So you can keep your feet exactly as they are. You might want them a little bit wider. Sometimes it's nice just to give yourself a little bit of space. Bend your knees, reach your arms forward and up. And then as you exhale, bring your fists to your hips and you could sink down just a little bit lower. Okay, inhale, press into your heels. You can rise slightly. And as you exhale, sink a little bit. Think hips back rather than forward. So the knees should be happy. Okay, inhale, rise. Exhale, fist to hips. Okay, we'll take a couple more, just working into this kind of powerful breath. Working into the strength of the glutes and the legs. Nice, you guys, 2 more. So good. Then stand up, hook your thumbs, reach up and open the armpits a little bit. And then release the hands around behind your back and interlace the fingers. If you prefer to hold a strap here, that's great. You can also hook your thumbs if that's a little more accessible. Any of those is fine. Hug the elbows together. Draw the belly in a little bit. Lengthen the tailbone and engage your glutes and press your heart up to the sky. So we're trying to open the chest. The fist can go down, maybe a little bit back. And then you can stay or fold forward. So bend the knees and come on down, letting the fists rise over your head. Okay, and then you can stay here, just sort of breathing in your fold, or bend your knees a bit more. Then straighten your right leg and let your chest turn a little to the right. Bend both knees, and then straighten your left knee and turn a little to the left. And then center. And one more time each side, just if that's feeling good. Good, and then hands to the lower back, let them release all the way down towards the earth. Take a halfway lift, and then let's come down through a squat. So you can widen your feet even a little bit more. Turn the toes out, and then sink your hips. So some of you might find that you're sitting on a block. You might find that works better for you than coming straight down. You might need to sit right down onto your bum. We're not going to be here for too long, just a couple of breaths, okay? Knees should feel safe. If you are in that full unsupported squat, elbows into the inner thighs, palms together. You can do that in any of these, actually. You don't have to be in the unsupported one to do that mudra, just if it works for you. Try to pull the shoulders down the back, shoulders down the back. Let the sternum bone lift a little bit towards the thumbs. And take a nice deep breath. And one more here. Lovely, and then we'll sit down. So bring your butt to the floor, hands behind you, and lay all the way down onto your back. Feel free to use the support of your hands, or you could use your core to come down if you want. So do a little bit of work here into the core. So I just want to start with our gentle rehabilitative core, and then we'll go beyond that if needed. Okay, so just take a moment to have your feet on the ground, middle fingers to your hip points, thumbs to your low ribs. Inhale. And as you exhale, gather in your pelvic floor and imagine that you're gathering those 4 points together. So your spine is going to stay the same. You're just engaging everything in towards the midline. Okay, from here, as you inhale, you can lift up your right foot. And as you exhale, you can put it down. And then inhale and lift up your left foot. And as you exhale, put it back down. So just taking a moment to kind of check in with what's going on in the core today. Think about drawing the belly in and up, keeping the pelvic floor engaged, And these 4 points continue to hug in together, okay? And if you're feeling like this is working for you, this is where you want to stay today, that is fantastic, okay? Otherwise, we'll just go to a little bit of a different place. So if you're coming with me, you can lift your shoulder blades up off the mat, interlacing your fingers behind the back of your head, and we're gonna lift both of the feet up. Squeeze the knees together, toes together, as if you were holding like a bill between your knees. Okay, and then as you inhale, let the knees move just past the hips. And as you exhale, bring them in. Inhale, let the knees move away from your face, just past the hips. Exhale, bring them in. If this is working for you, okay, we'll keep doing that. But then on the exhale, as the knees come in, you can also curl the lower half of the spine up off the ground as well. So try to avoid using momentum here. Just think about that little bit of a lift. So it's not going to look like much, okay? But we're moving the knees just past the hips. We're not straightening, and then we're curling in. This is one of my perennial favorites for core. It's not particularly hard necessarily, but I find it often makes me shake. Just really gets into some of those deeper core muscles that are so useful for so many different kinds of reasons. I've got my toes flared, and we want to keep thinking about actively pressing the legs together. It helps to activate the deep internal core line. Try to relax the jaw if you can. You guys are doing great. For 3. For 2. Okay, for 1, if you're still with me and you want a little more, widen the knees apart, keep the toes together. Press the toes together, and we're just gonna pulse the upper body up, 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 for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Last thing, if you can keep going, stay lifted, curl the tailbone for 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Amazing, you guys, relax. You can take soles of the feet together, knees open wide, or knees together, feet wide, and take a couple of really mindful, soft belly breaths, softening the pelvic floor. Relaxing the belly. And you might also like to take just a nice big stretch, reaching the legs out long, arms up over the head, and just kind of imagine that you're stretching out the belly. Okay, and then we're going to meet in our downward facing dog. So you can rock and roll forward and back along your spine, or you can roll to one side. If you happen to be pregnant, it's generally a good idea to get into the habit of rolling to your side first. Otherwise, you can rock and roll. And then take a vinyasa. So again, that could mean cat and cow. It doesn't have to be this classical sequence, but just go ahead and roll through. So I'm coming into plank, little push-up, that could be a centimeter, and then pulling through into cobra or up dog, or whatever your favorite back bend is, just to find some length in the belly. Shoulders down the back, and then returning to downward facing dog. Take a nice big inhale here. Let's exhale at the mouth. Right leg is going to rise. Roll the hips open, bend your knee, give your psoas a little bit of space. Inhale, and then as you exhale, step that foot through. We're going to come back into a low lunge, so back knee down. And you may want to pat it. We're going to be here a little longer than the breath. So go ahead and rise up into your low lunge, drawing the tailbone a little bit down, hips forward. Reach your arms up, and then bend your left elbow and hold on to it with your right hand. Press up into the elbow. So part of what I mean by that is drawing the front ribs in. And then side stretch a little bit to the right. Okay, inhale, come up through center, and then take your elbow right across your thigh and line up your palms, or you can stay up high and just take your hand to the outside of your thigh, okay? So a good idea to stay here if you're pregnant, or again, if your lower back is a little sensitive. If that more compressed twist feels good, you can be here. Shoulders on the back wherever you are. So you're kind of pulling those shoulder blades down, lifting the heart. And if you're up in this high variation, lately I quite like having the arm open and just working on opening the chest here. Inhale, and then we'll gently release whatever the mudra is. Bring the hands down to either side of the front foot, and then we'll straighten that front leg. So if you happen to have blocks, they can be really nice for this. Okay, your back hip is over top of your knee. You can also just be on fingertips. If you only have one block, I would put it on the inside. Okay, little micro bend in that front knee, or more than a micro bend. Flex the foot, and as you inhale, draw the heart forward, and as you exhale, melt. Lengthen and melt. So don't worry about what this looks like, how high or low you're going, but I just want you to imagine that the spine lengthens from the tailbone and gently releases from there as well. So it's the whole spine, not just your head or shoulders, but really the whole thing. Awesome. Let's take one more deep breath here. Good. And then look forward, bend into your front leg, pick up the back knee. You can walk your hands forward, and let's lift that back leg up, not for too long, just a breath or two here, just finding that standing L shape. If you're feeling like you're really wanting to work on your balance and your strength today, you could see if you can bring the fingertips together to touch, and then see if you can lower your left foot without touching the floor. Okay, you might need the hands. That's completely fine. Just give it a little go there. Nice. And then let's just bend one knee at a time, kind of release that from the outer hip. Lovely. And then let's roll up once again, keeping in mind if that rolling doesn't work for you, sweeping is perfect. Otherwise, just imagine you're really grounding your feet and rising from there. Collecting the shoulders onto the back, taking a moment to breathe, to receive. Good. And then we're going to take that same mudra, which is Hakini mudra. So we've got the fingertips just pressing in together. I love this one for balance when we can do it symmetrically. There's kind of a hugging in of the elbows here. Lift up your toes, spread them apart, reconnect them, lean left, and then pick up your right knee. Okay, and really press the fingertips together to help you with balance. You can stay here, or some of you might try straightening your leg. That's going to be a little bit more intense. And then bend the knee again, open it up and try for tree pose. So the sole of the foot might come to the inner line of the leg, above or below the knee. Squeeze the glutes. You can also have your toes on the floor and your heel on your ankle, if you're just kind of working on your balance here, and or use a wall to help support you. Keeping your gaze steady on something that's not moving helps with balance a lot as well. Maybe you're reaching your arms up. I would recommend continuing to hug those elbows together. Okay, bring your hands back to your heart if they're up, but I invite you to keep the mudra. Lift up your right knee to the right and then step it open into warrior two. So nice wide stance. Still got the mudra here, or come back to it if you've lost it. Bend your knee right over top of your ankle, lower that back hip and turn your heart mostly to the side wall or the long edge of your mat. Your hips are going to be on a little bit of an angle, okay? Then hug your elbows together, reach the arms up, and experiment with allowing the hands to come kind of around behind your head and hugging the elbows together. So you should feel a little bit of kind of something interesting happening in the shoulders, arms, maybe a bit of a stretch there. It's a little strengthening as well. Good, and then release the arms up. Bend the left elbow, hold on to it with the right hand, just like we did in the lunge before, and lean back towards your straight back leg. Again, draw the ribs in a little bit. This is more of a side bend here. Okay, and then straighten the front leg, come up through center, release your hands. Parallel your feet so that all the toes face in the same direction. Interlace your fingers around behind your back. Or you can hook thumbs, or you can use your strap, okay? Hug the elbows together, lift your heart. And just pause here for a moment. Sometimes we lose some of that lovely chest opening when we go down too fast. So just take a moment to engage the legs, lift the heart, pull those fists down. And maybe you even want to stay here a little bit longer, or you could bend your knees a little, tip your bum up and come into a forward bend, letting the fists rise over your head, but don't let them flop too much. Think of continuing to press the fists up to the sky. And if that's too much, hands can come down at any time, of course. Beautiful, you guys. Release your hands gently if you haven't. Good. Take a halfway lift and then crawl back towards the front of your mat. So that's towards your left foot. Heel toe your foot out a little bit wide to the long edge of your mat and let your back knee come down. You can also try untucking your back toes. If you've got those blocks, you might want to use them here. Turn your toes a little bit off to the left and sink your hips forward until you get that nice juicy stretch into your hip. If you think about pressing into the top of the back foot and lengthening your heart forward, you might also feel a little bit of a psoas release here, which is apparently what I need today. That feels really good. You can absolutely stay here, or you can lower down a little bit, just increasing that hip opening. You can also open your hip a little bit to the side. So I'll just turn to the front for a moment. So it kind of looks like this, coming onto the outer arch of the foot, keeping the ankle nice and steady. And that's just going to be a bit of a different hip opening. Again, we're opening the hips on this full moon with this kind of idea of like getting the gunk out, whatever's been hanging out in there. Awesome. And then let's take a nice deep breath. You can exhale out your mouth if you want. And then gently press back up to your hands, gather the foot and the knee back into the midline. And then what I'd love for you to do is come back into three-legged downward facing dog. You could also do hands and knees here, but if you can, pick up that back knee, left leg goes back and up into the sky behind you. Then we're going to circle 3 times, bringing the knee to the right upper arm, shoulders into plank if possible, and then sweep the knee open to the left and then back up to the sky. And we're going to do that 2 more times. So the knee comes across to the right upper arm, sweeps open to the left, and then back up. And 1 more. Awesome. And then back to downward dog, optionally vinyasa. If you're feeling like child's pose is what you need, that's perfect. And again, that vinyasa can be kind of flexible. It's sort of funny to say in a yoga context, but it can be what you need it to be, right? Beautiful. All right, so when you're ready, let's take that left leg. So that's the same leg that was just up there. We're going to take that back up to the sky and step it through, coming into a low lunge. So the back knee is going to come down. Again, you can pad it a bit if you need. Rise on up. Draw the tailbone down, press the hips a little bit forward. Bend the right elbow, hold on to the left hand. Gently curve to the left. Think of hugging the inner thighs a little bit towards each other, even as you're pressing the hips down and forward and breathing into the back ribs. So good. And then come up through center and into a twist. So the elbow can come across the thigh, or you can take just a hand to the outer thigh and twist open. So if you're up high here, as I am, the arm can be open, and we're focusing that on more of a chest opening. And that's generally good if you're pregnant or your lower back's a bit sensitive. This one with the elbow across, some days I love it, some days I truly don't. So just check in with what feels right for you. Wherever you are, draw the shoulders down, the heart forward. Inhale, and then gently untwist. You can bring your hands down again onto those blocks if you have them. We'll straighten out the front leg. A little bit of a bend in the knee there, and your back hip should be just right over top of the hip. I like untucked back toes, that my knee just tends to prefer that. You can do that too. And then lengthen your heart as you inhale and gently melt as you exhale. So just thinking about the movement coming all the way from the tailbone to the crown. So it's really full spinal movement. Even while you're drawing your left hip back and flexing your foot. Beautiful. And then we're going to look forward, bend into that front leg. You can bring your blocks if you want. And if you have them, back leg lifts up high to the sky. So we're not going to be here too long. Just take a moment to hug the inner thighs, send the heel up to the sky. And you might stay here, or some of you might experiment with bringing the fingertips together in that mudra that we talked about, pressing them into each other nice and strong, and just slowly with control, lowering the right foot beside the left. Which like really works my outer left hip. I definitely feel that work there. And then you can just take a moment once you come down to bend one knee at a time and just kind of massage out the outer hips a little bit, which we'll continue to do. And again, let's roll up, taking your sweet time. And I like to roll up when I'm about to balance because I find it helps me just with my blood pressure regulating. And it helps me to kind of find my feet, my breath. It just helps me to balance a little better when I do that. So when you get to the top, just take a moment to notice, to feel, to receive. When you're ready, find that mudra again, pressing the fingertips into each other, hugging the elbows. Lift the toes, spread them, press them down. Lean right, and then hug your left leg in, bend the knee up. So we're just working with balance. And you might stay here. If you straighten the leg, that's going to be a little more intense. I'm aiming for 3 breaths there. It's not easy. And then bending the knee again, opening it and coming into a tree. So sole of the foot to the inner leg above or below the knee. You can pull it up and kind of tuck the heel into the upper thigh. Sometimes that helps with finding balance, because you really want to press the leg and the foot into each other. Ideally, the glutes are engaged here. We've still got that mudra, or we're coming back to it. And you might play with reaching it up, but keep the fingertips connected and the elbows hugging together. Gaze steady, breath even. Yeah, and then bring your hands back to your heart. We're going to open the knee to the left and then along the mat. So we're coming into warrior two, and we're going to keep that mudra or return to it. Knee over the ankle, tailbone is long, and this back hip is just lowering slightly. So finding that alignment. You can peek down, make sure your knee is right over your ankle, and then hug the elbows, reach that mudra up, and you can play with bringing the hands around behind the back of the head. So you're just going to feel that your shoulders are kind of working, they're doing something. Yeah, and Liz, turn those toes right towards that short edge of your mat. Yeah, so the opposite of that direction, right towards the, I'm not sure, I think that's a wall there. So the toes are pointing to the long edge of the mat, so turn them to the short edge. That's the one. Yeah, even more. There you go. That's it. And then bend the knee. You got it. That's it. So the back leg is straight and the toes turn in just a little. So that back foot, it looks like you can actually turn it all the way to the long edge. That's it. There you go. You got it. Exactly. So we have this kind of two different angles going on with the legs. Okay, and then we're going to have, sorry, I'm here, aren't I? We're going to bend the right elbow, hold on to it with the left hand, and curve towards the back. That's it. Yeah, so if I gave you those wrong legs there, Liz, we've got the right leg forward, right toes are pointing forward, and the left leg is straight and the toes are pointing in a little. So forgive me if I was giving you the directions on the wrong legs there. Beautiful. Okay, let's straighten the front leg. Release the hands. We're going to turn the toes so that all of them face the long edge of the mat. Let's take the hands onto the hips this time. Hug the elbows together, lift your heart, and then fold down and bring the fingertips to the earth. So I like to actually let my heels come out a little wider than my toes for this, just a bit. Slight bend to the knees, and we're going to walk the hands forward, up on fingertips, and melt the heart back towards the thighs. So this is a little bit of a different way of opening the chest and the upper back. Think about the weight being back in your heels. So your bum can be even slightly behind your heels, and imagine your heart is kind of dropping back in between your thighs. That's it. Nice. This should feel good. This is one of my favorite ones. If it doesn't quite feel good, you could try your hands wider or closer. Just kind of depends on your body. So see where you get that nice feeling of opening in your chest and upper back. Maybe even a little sway of the chest from side to side. Good. And then halfway lift, bring your hands under your shoulders again. Turn them towards your front foot, which should be your right foot. Back knee can lower. And then walk your foot out once or twice so that it's along the long edge of the mat and the toes can turn open to the right slightly as well. You can come onto your blocks if you have them. You don't necessarily need them here. You can untuck your back toes and just press into the top of that back foot, lifting the heart forward and up. Nice little hip flexor psoas release there. Certainly might be feeling the right hip as well. You can stay here, or you can start to open the hips. So you're coming onto the outer edge of your foot, and you can lower your upper body a bit. So that might just mean bending your elbows slightly. It might mean bringing your elbows right down. So don't worry about what this looks like, but more so thinking, okay, where do I get the hip opening that works for me? This is, I suppose, is sometimes called lizard or awkward pigeon. So if it feels awkward, that's not wrong. Good, yeah. And then we'll gently ease up, coming back up to the hands, walking the knee back in towards the midline. And then again, my invitation is for you to come into three-legged downward dog. You can do this with your left knee down. And I'm just gonna face this way so that you can kind of see what's going on. And then the right leg is gonna go up towards the sky. So that leg that you just had in the front, you're gonna bring it to the back. Bring it across to your left upper arm. Come forward if your shoulders are okay with that. Sweep the knee open to the right and then back up to the sky. And do that 2 more times. So we're kind of reintegrating that outer hip musculature. 1 more. Ooh, that feels different on that side for me. And then come into your downward facing dog, and you can take Vinyasa if you wish. This will probably be your last one if you want one. Child's pose is a great option too. Let's just take a moment in our downward dog or child's pose just to breathe. You might want to exhale out your mouth. Okay, so I would like to invite you guys to play with headstand. So I'm going to give you some options. Don't feel like you have to do headstand, especially if you've never done it before or if you have some neck issues or whatever. I'm going to give you lots of options. So feel free to return to child's pose at any time if that's what feels safest for you. Okay. You can also do a headless variation of headstand. So the mudra is like this. So we've got the fingers loosely interlaced. The bottom pinky is tucked in, and we've got this little space between the palms so that when we come into it, we're not holding the head, we're not clamming the hands together, but there's this space here, okay? So it's kind of like a little nest for the head to rest in. If you're doing the headless version, it's the same exact mudra, but you just don't have your head on the floor. And this is wonderful for shoulder health. So we've got that mudra. We would all start here, and then your head would come down or not. Here's what the headless one looks like. It's downward dog on the elbows, essentially. You can let your head relax if you want. And then if you're gonna come into headstand, I'm just gonna give you a little more instruction here, okay? So the head is gonna come down. It's right the crown of your head, essentially. And I'm gonna offer just a way of coming in. So there's a few different ways that you can play with. And maybe I'll just show you at my wall. It's nice to have a wall. You can do, this one involves half headstand, so you can do it without a wall, but it's just nice to have that support there. So I'm gonna bring the mat up to the wall. You can double fold your mat if you have a sensitive noggin. You can be pretty close to the wall for this. I'm farther than you would have to be. You can be kind of nestled right up to it, but I'm just gonna be here. So the head comes down. We're taking our downward dog, walking the feet in, and then we're gonna bring a knee in as opposed to up. Lean into the elbows, press back, and we're gonna try to bring the other leg in as well. Think about that core we did before. Tip the bum up. Ooh, I'm going farther than I want to there. And then here's half headstand, just right here. And then we can work to straighten the legs together. Okay. So that's a variation to explore. And just to clarify, the knee comes in, not up, but in. And then there's going to be this difficult moment where we're kind of rounded and the core is working so hard. So right away, we need to let the bum tip back so that the back comes to its neutral position. And then you'll be like, oh, I'm balanced and this feels okay. And then you can straighten your legs up, okay? So I'll talk you through that again. If you're willing to give it a try, feel free. Headstand is also nice because you can kind of take it stage by stage. You don't have to go all the way up if it doesn't feel safe for you, but we can just kind of explore this, okay? So find your mudra on the ground. I was doing a lot of headstands yesterday and I'm a little tired from it, to be honest with you. All those muscles working really hard. So we've got that mudra on the ground. And then you can choose to put your head down or not. If you're not putting your head down, you're probably, you can't do the half headstand with your head not on the ground. It would be like a Herculean effort of strength. So feel free to just play with the downward dog variation, walking your feet in a little bit closer, maybe even lifting a leg at a time just to kind of get what that feels like. Okay, otherwise, yeah, we're doing this half headstand variation. So the knee comes in, and then, yes, Marina, you're doing so great. The key is pushing into your elbows to try to get the weight of your butt behind you. And it's nice to have that wall there to support you. Yeah. So it's really a bit of a moment of using the core a lot. Okay, and then take a little break, maybe a child's pose. A couple of you are doing some elevated legs, which is a beautiful variation here as well. I'm going to give you a little more for headstand if you want. Okay, so any particular questions come up? Sometimes it's helpful if I know where the sticking points are. Yeah, so feel free to ask if something comes up. I'm going to give you a different variation to play with because this works better for some people. So the thing about half headstand, it's great because you have to really use your core and it helps you to find your balance. But that moment of trying to get both legs in and still be balancing is like, that's all the core you got. Like, it's so much. And you can only pause there for a moment before you can kind of tip back. So here's a straight leg variation. You're welcome to try that again if you want, but you might find that this works better for you. So this one too, we need to think about the space behind our bodies. So you're prepping into headstand like this, but it's pretty hard to lift when you're in a triangle. You need to actually be not only straight up and down, but some of your weight needs to be behind you in order to allow that bottom half to lift. So with the half headstand, you're using your core and your butt, but with the split legs, it would look a little more like this. Same prep to start. Then the leg lifts. And you want to think about, again, pushing into the elbows and trying to get that leg behind you. Once it's behind you, the other leg gets lighter, and then you can find the midline. Okay, to come down too, I go behind me first, then down. Because when we're doing the prep to come up, the back is slightly rounded, and part of the work of it is pushing into the elbows and lifting. I'm going to give you one more piece. Feel free to play with this. I know Joanna, you might like this one. She's going to be watching the recording. So this is just a little variation you can try if you want. And especially if you're a little more comfortable with headstand, sometimes it's nice to just kind of know that you can. So I'm going to see if I can come back up into that half headstand. And I might need my breath because apparently I'm a bit tired today. And I'll just show you a variation that's kind of fun once you're in it. So we're coming in, knee in. Stick the bum up, and then we can have our butterfly legs, because why not have our butterfly legs? It's a great way to get the bum back, and then coming back out. See how my butt's going behind me, and then I curl down. Okay, easy peasy. So feel free to give that a try and ask questions if you have them. We'll just take another minute or two to play with our headstand. We'll all meet laying on our backs eventually, so if you want to come there now, you're welcome to. Yeah. Nice. There you go. Yeah, that's really good, Marina. And then just think about that tipping of the bum back, pushing into, it looks like you've got your hands down there. You can do it that way too. Yeah. Liz, that's awesome. You're doing great. Beautiful. Nice work, everybody. Yeah, and then coming into child's pose if you're coming out of that headstand. And we'll just lazily make our way to laying on our backs. So we'll all meet there. And then wherever you are, just take a moment to relax the head and neck. You could even just rock the head a little from side to side. And the next pose that we're going to do is a nice counter pose to headstand. So we're going to take bridge. So you're going to take your elbows beside your ribs, fingertips point up to the sky. Heels are, I like outer hips distance apart. Some people like inner hips, like sit bone distance apart. Feet parallel, and the heels are close enough to touch, but they're not touching your bum. Press into the feet, lift your bum right up. Press your elbows down and apart. Try to snuggle your shoulders together on your back. A variation I quite like is holding the edges of the mat with your hands and pulling it apart as you push the floor forward. If it's accessible, you can also interlace your fingers and use the length of your arms. Hug the inner thighs a bit together and imagine your knees and your chest are trying to get away from each other. We're just going to do one of these today because I want to do a little bit more hip opening. So if you're feeling like you really want to take this into wheel and you know how and you know it's safe for you, feel free, but I'm not going to go there today myself. Not going to teach it today. And then gently come down when you're ready. If you're coming out of wheel, chin into chest first. And again, you can rock your head. And then shift your hips a little bit to the left. Bring in your knees and take them over to the right. Just a nice simple twist. This one is generally relatively safe for pregnancy, but if you're feeling like it's a bit tight, you can always widen the knees apart like this. This is also nice if your lower back isn't crazy about twists. But sometimes when the lower back is sore, it really wants to twist. So just kind of check in and see what feels right for you. This particular twist should feel quite good. It shouldn't be painful or tingly or uncomfortable anywhere. If it is, just adjust something or come right out of it. And then we'll switch sides. So you can engage the belly, bring your knees in, shift the hips a little to the right, pick up the knees and take them to the left. And the shoulder is aiming towards the floor. It's kind of relaxing towards the floor. It's not necessarily a bad thing if the shoulder doesn't touch, but we just want to make sure we're not getting any tingling in the hands. And again, adjusting if you need a little bit more space for your belly or your back. And I like to let the breath stay deep, but I like to let it move down a little bit into my belly. So I'm not so much doing the ujjayi here anymore. Softening. Beautiful. And then gently engaging the belly, coming back through center. Hug the knees in towards your chest and give yourself a little rock from side to side. And if you move the knees a bit farther away, that will be a little bit more of a massage to the lower part of the back. So feel free to take that. We're going to take thread the needle. So you can take your left ankle to your right thigh and then hold on to the right thigh if you can by taking the left hand into the window between the legs and interlacing around the back of the right thigh or shin. Keep both of your feet flexed, especially that left one, and just gently draw in. A little trick for this one I found is if you're quite tight in the hips and you find that you're rounding your spine a lot, putting a little prop underneath your lower back can help to release that and just bring gravity a little bit more onto your side. So the idea is that you're feeling a nice stretch in the hip, outer glute kind of area. And it should feel good. It shouldn't be uncomfortable here, really. Too uncomfortable, maybe a little uncomfortable. You can also rock a little bit from side to side. I find especially if I lean my legs a bit to the right, that just gets a bit juicier into that hip there. So nice. When you're ready, let's gently release that. I usually like to shake my legs up towards the sky. You could also take a little windshield wiper. And then let's take the second side. So right ankle comes to the left thigh. If you can, right hand goes between the legs and you're holding the back of the leg. For some people, the foot stays on the floor and that's fine. Okay, again, the feet are flexed, and what that does is it protects the knee. So if the foot is floppy, the stretch will often go into the knee and it's not really wanted there. Yeah, and then again, we can rock a little from side to side, maybe exploring what do you feel if you let your legs lean a little to the left? Beautiful, and then let's release that. Again, you can shake the legs up towards the sky if you like. And then let's just briefly take a little happy baby or mini happy baby. So you can let the knees go wide and rock side to side. And if you'd like, you can also hold the feet or the ankles and rock like that. So we're just getting a little space into the inner thighs. This is nice for the lower back too. And it's just nice symmetrical release before Shavasana. If there's anything else you need before you can rest in your Shavasana, feel free to take that. Otherwise, let's go ahead and come into a resting shape. So classically, Shavasana is laying flat on the back. But if you have a bolster, you can put it under your thighs. A lot of people really like that. If this isn't comfortable, you can always have the knees bent. You can lay on your side. It's whatever's most comfortable for you to just take a little rest and receive the energy from our practice today. All the twisting and hip opening and inverting, just sort of moving the gunk, the energetic gunk through our bodies, releasing with this full moon. Just taking a moment to notice how you're feeling. And if what you're feeling is that you'd like to stay in your rest for a little longer and you have the time to do that, please feel welcome to stay and rest. Otherwise, you can begin to deepen your breath. Maybe bring some small movements into your toes and fingers. You can stretch, reaching your arms up, legs out long. And gently Draw your knees in, rolling over to one side. And eventually rising to a seat, maybe with your hands together or over top of your heart or wherever feels right for you. And gently bowing your mind to your hands, just taking a moment to honor and acknowledge whatever it took for you to get to your practice today. To honor and acknowledge the long and complex lineage of teachers that is with us in our yoga. And to honor the land that we practice on, wherever that may be in the world. Thank you for sharing your practice with me today.